Welcome, everyone. Oh, it's instantly quiet. In the next 15 minutes, I want to talk about bUnit and how it can help improve your Blazor application. And I'm not doing it alone. I'm doing it with Bob. This is Bob. I had to comprehend AI somehow in the presentation. So we're going to follow the story of Bob. And Bob is a software developer working at a company for 20 years already. And they're building a great e-commerce platform. Though the platform is getting pretty old in 20 years, they're still using web forms. So they need something new. And they read about Blazor and how easy it is because they're already .NET developers and they don't need to learn JavaScript. So they decided to use Blazor. But there's one big problem they're facing. And before I go towards that problem, I'll quickly introduce myself. I'm Muns. I do stuff with code for Vitas. And I got a new dog this January. So that's it. Back to the problem that Bob's facing. Bob is shipping his Blazor application without testing. And probably most of you are developers, I think. I hope so. And not testing means lots and lots of bugs within your new application. And also, because there are no tests, there's a really slow feedback cycle. Because the code gets shipped to the customer then sees a bug, it reports it, yada, yada, yada. It takes weeks before it gets fixed. That's not a good sign. So Bob thinks, well, this is, by the way, how the application looks after a while. And Bob is not happy. Sorry, I forgot that one. So Bob thinks, okay, we can use tools we already use for other systems. Selenium and Playwright. Is everyone familiar with these tools? See some nodding, I see some nodding. For the people that don't know, those are end-to-end testing tools that emulate the browser and simulate user interaction with your front-end application, and it's mainly used for end-to-end testing. But Bob doesn't like this. And that's due to the fact that we're not only testing our front-end, but we're also testing our back-end, our data store. We're basically testing everything. Also, testing is slower because you need everything, and especially in the microservice world where we are in now, this means quite a lot of setup. So these weren't options for Bob. So Bob continues searching for a great system. Sorry, I really like this picture. Especially the mouse on the keyboard is really great. So he gets searching on the internet, okay, how do I test Blazor applications? What are my possibilities? And that's where he finally found bUnit. And for people who think, wow, this is the logo of Blazor, it almost is, but it is green instead of purple. Great. So what is bUnit? bUnit is an open source library to actually test your Blazor components. So instead of emulating a browser and emulating user interaction in that browser, we can just render Blazor components separately and interact with it to test whatever we want to test. It enables a regular unit testing experience for us .NET developers, because we can use this with XUnit or NUnit, write tests like we know how to write tests, and no new framework or other crazy stuff. It's supported by the .NET Foundation, which is really cool because it gives a bit of certainty that it will be supported for the future. And it's not a replacement for NUnit or XUnit. Most of the people I speak about bUnit, they're like, oh, is that a new framework instead of XUnit or NUnit? No, it's not. It's a tool to use with one of the frameworks. So how do we set this up? How can we use this? Well, there are two ways to do this. The first way is installing a template and then using the template to create a test project, which will set everything correct for you. You can use XUnit, you can use NUnit, and you can even use MS Test if you really want to and hate yourself. But that's on me. The other way is manually. You can create a test project using the framework you want, then install the bUnit package, and you have to change the SDK style to a Razor instead of the default. And that's because the rendering bUnit uses. So we got the project installed. How can we test? But first of all, maybe, what are we going to test? So To give the first example, we have I think everyone recognizes this who works with Blazor. It's just a counter. So we click on the button and it increments the count. It's easy. So how do we test this? We create a class and we implement or use the test context as a base class, which is a bUnit class that enables us to render the components. So when we get that class, we can then create a method, and in this case, we use the AAA testing, so range, act, and assert. So we render the component, and the component is called cut, which stands for component under test. So sorry if it sounds like I'm swearing for all Dutchies in the room. And then we can interact with that component just like it's HTML. So we can use CSS selectors. In this case, I'm just looking for a button. I click it, and then I'm gonna find the current count and check if it actually incremented. Very easy. And also good to see that it's within XUnit. It looks familiar, hopefully. And it's no new framework or anything. So this is a really simple or really basic example. What if we take a look at the more real-world example? So this is the counter, and we just saw that one, but we also have a checkout. And this one looks a little bit more complicated. This is a Razor page, which consists of two components, a billing address form and a cart. We also have some services that get card items. I'll show the code in a bit. And we also can interact, there's some validation, really cool stuff. But how do we test this? So if we go to the code, and I don't see my mouse. There it is.
On your keyboard.
Good point, good point. And we check the checkout page. We see two components. We see the checkout card, and we see the billing address. So if we take a look at one of those, and I'll start with the checkout card, we see we built a list here with all our card items. We get them using a service. We're using cascade parameters to get the current user ID, so we can get the card items for that user, and that's it. So how can we unit test this? Because we're injecting services, we've got cascading parameters, and that's actually quite doable with bUnit. Because if we take a look at the tests, we see here we arrange a random user ID. It doesn't really matter. We use mock to mock our service, and then set up the item, or sorry, the service, set whatever it needs to return, and then we just inject it in the services just as what we would do in the program.cs. We can then render the component. We can give a parameter to it, in this case, the user ID. And after that, we can find the card items and check if it matches what we expect. If we take a look at the billing address, we got a form with also a parameter for the billing address, but also an event callback. In Blazor, I think a lot of people here know Blazor. Event callbacks are pretty common to communicate between components. So is it also possible to unit test that? The answer is obviously yes, by the way. So if you take a look here, we also arrange whatever we expect. We then render the component. We give the billing address, but we can also set up the on billing address submitted event. And we can, in this case, we just set a Boolean to true. So we know that it is invoked, and that's it. We then fill in everything, so we search for all the inputs given its input ID. We execute the change event with the input which we like. And after all inputs are filled, we just submit the button or press the submit button. So the form is submitted, and then we can check if there's no error message, if the event callback is called, and if it's expected, the result is expected. So bUnit makes it quite easy to unit test your Blazor components just the way like we unit test our backends. So these were pretty basic examples of a form submitting, injecting a service, and mocking one method. But there are way more cooler features that I'm that are not included in the demo. And some of them are emulating the EAS runtime, which is possible. Faking the authorization, so the .NET authentication authorization, so you can fake roles, you can fake scopes, you can fake whatever you want with it. Some other built-in features of Blazor, like the persistent component state and the navigation manager. We can even mock other components, so child components. We can automatically create stubs for them. So if we use a third-party tool, we can just say, okay, create a stub for it, so we don't rely in the test on the third-party tool. We can mock HTTP client, localizers, etc., just as we saw with the card service in the demo. And this gives a lot of benefits. Because if we can unit test our Blazor application instead of end-to-end testing, we can write the test in a comprehensive and familiar way, just like the backends. We can write them pretty fast, and they are fast compared to end-to-end testing, because we don't need to set up the whole chain. We can just run the front end. We get feedback faster, and hopefully it's less of a burden to unit test your front end, which ultimately results in less bugs in the front end. And this makes Bob obviously very, very happy. Maybe a bit too happy. So this was really short. Maybe due to this as a lightning talk. But if you want to know more about bUnit, here are 3 great sources. The first one is the official documentation of bUnit. The second one is a blog of Microsoft about unit testing your Blazor application, or testing in general. And the last one is maybe a bit strange, but that's Mud Blazor. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with Mud Blazor, but it's an open source component library for Blazor. But they also use bUnit in a very, very interesting way. So definitely check it out if you really want to. That was it. So thank you for your attention. Have a lovely conference, and see you around.